So this evening we're doing case 28 of the Mumonkan. And it has several different translations, well-known Ryutan, or long have we heard of Longtan. Longtan is the Chinese, Ryutan is the Japanese. And I'll read the case and then we'll make it real. Because again, this is not a bedtime story. If it's just a story, it could be a nice thing to read. You kind of muse and think, oh, that's kind of cool. But to actually make it a focus of spiritual practice means it has to be about the very nature of this mind, of the very mind that is sitting there hearing these words. So this is a little bit long, and I'll read the story, and then we'll try to see if we can make it real. So this is using the Chinese terms instead of Chinese names instead of the Japanese names. Once when Deshan, he was a student, was getting instructions from Longtan, he stayed on into the night. Longtan said, "It's late, why don't you go?" Deshan said goodbye and lifted up the curtain to go out. He saw it was dark outside, so he turned back and said, "It's dark outside." Longtan then lit a paper lantern, it was a candle, and handed it to Deshan. As Deshan was about to take it, Longtan blew the candle out. At that moment, Deshan suddenly had an insight. He then bowed to Longtan and said, "What principle have you realized? What have you seen?" Deshan said, "From this day forward, I will no longer doubt your words." The next day, Longtan went up to the teaching hall and said, "Among you there's a fellow with teeth like swords and a mouth like a bowl full of blood. Strike him a blow and he'll never turn back. In the future, he will go to the summit of a solitary peak and establish our path there." Deshan then went out to the front of the teaching hall with all of his commentaries and annotations of the Diamond Sutra. Holding up a torch, he exclaimed, "Exhausting all the sublime theories is nothing more than placing a single hair in the vastness of space. Investigating the workings of the world is like throwing a single drop of water into the great abyss." He burned all of his commentaries and annotations, paid homage to Longtan's teacher, and left. Mumonkan's comment on this. Before Deshan passed through the barrier, the student, his heart had been burning with zeal and his tongue was very sharp. He traveled south with the intent to wipe out the special transmission outside of the scriptural teachings. When he reached Luzhou, he told an old woman selling refreshments by the road that he wanted to buy some dessert to eat, some called mind refresher. The woman asked him, "What are those writings that you read in your cart?" Virtuous one. Deshan said, "That's my commentary and annotations in the Diamond Sutra." The woman said, "Ah, doesn't it say in the Diamond Sutra that the past mind cannot be found, the present mind cannot be found, and the future mind cannot be found? Which mind do you wish to refresh?" When Deshan heard this question, his mouth remained shut, unable to answer. And then he goes on. It's nice to read these stories just to get a little feeling of the literature. So this guy, according to the story, this scholar, expanded version, was a very famous scholar. He had done lots. He studied the Diamond Sutra. The Diamond Sutra is one of the Prajnaparamita texts. It's about emptiness. And it basically says that everything that we call a name, everything we call a concept is really empty. He had studied all this stuff, and he was coming down to southern China to refute the teachings of instantaneous enlightenment. That's the background. So the first place let's consider is we have all studied a lot. We know a whole lot. Some people have got advanced degrees, and some people have lots of education, some people have lots of life skills, some people have done lots of things with their life. We know a lot, us modern human beings. So the first real question is, what is it that's knowing? What is knowing itself? When we say, "I know something," when we say right here, "I know something," I know I've got this book, what does that mean? So we look directly into that. So we say, "I'm holding this book up." Now, that image is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So when we say, I know something, does it just mean I have a memory of some idea? Oh yes, I have a whole bunch of memories. I stuck them together and put them in a book. Are we just living out of all these memories that we have, memories of who we used to be, and memories of what our roommate said to us, and memories of what our partner did, and memories of all the stuff we learned in school, and memories of all the things we read? If you look directly at the nature of our own mind, my mind, your mind, and think, can I hold on to something? Is there some thing in there, some block of something that is actually in there? Or is it simply that I'm regurgitating a certain memory, a certain cycle? Oh, some time ago, Hogen held up a book. So, quite aside from what is the book, we have a memory. It's no longer an experience. So what we think of as knowing is more often simply memory that we're just regurgitating over and over again. Simply memory that we are bringing up and think, oh, I've got that memory, therefore I think I know something. That's one view. To question, what is it that's real? What is it that I actually can directly experience? What is it that I know versus what is something that my mind is adding on to reality? To actually question, what is it that's not just an opinion or a concept or a thought? What is it that's real? So the next way we can look at that is, okay, here's a book. And, the concept of, there's a person up here and they're waving a book around and I see all that and yes, it's, it's a profound text and all that stuff. But if we look directly at the perceiver, the act of perceiving and the object, if we look directly at that, there is no one out there. Just on a visual way, there's an object, there's the act of seeing, and there's the perceiver, and they can't be separated. No object, no perceiving. No perceiving, no perceiver. And just on a scientific perspective, there are light rays, hit the macula, hit the optic nerve, go to the brain and processing, and all you're seeing is the processing of the brain. And the mind takes that processing, whatever is going on, takes the sensation, takes this enormous amount of energy, of information that's coming in. Far more information comes in through the eyes and the brain is able to process it, filters it all down, it organizes it, it relates it to things that we've seen in the past, it puts some words on it, and it says, oh, there's that little package, I now know. But if we actually look at what is it that is there, it actually is pretty melting. And then if we actually take as a legitimate investigation, a legitimate spiritual question, who am I? Who is it that can know something? If we first look at things as memory and think, okay, there's just this memory of things that popped up, but who is it that recognizes memory? What is it that recognizes memory? What is it that's conscious? So this is a profound spiritual question. Who am I? What is it that suffers? What is it that makes decisions? Am I actually making a decision to do this? If so, what's the origin of it? What's the genesis of that? So the first part of this whole thing is here's this guy, this very arrogant person who says, I know lots, I know lots, I know lots. And he comes into this little town and somebody asks him, well, okay, it's great that you know lots, but who knows it? That's the first question that we have. That's the first part of answering this koan, is that question for ourselves. Who knows? Who sees? Who hears? Who smells? Who tastes? Who touches? Who is recognizing consciousness itself? Now, we all have lots of opinions. We all have lots of fixed views of who we think we are and what's going on. But to actually begin to question, what is it that is true? What is it that's real? I lie in bed at night and I'm reflecting, what do I know is true? Can I actually know something? If everything that comes into my mind is fleeting thought, does that count? If things that come into my mind, oh yes, I know my name, but who's that referred to? The same person I was 5 years ago. Who's that name referred to? Everything is constantly changing. When we are in difficulty, when we're suffering, these questions become really exigent. When we're suffering, the question of who am I, why me, who's suffering becomes really important. If we're not suffering, we're just having things going along, pretty cool, pretty easy. Yeah, these questions are kind of intellectual curiosities. It's only when something has really gotten to our heart, something has really been bitten in some way. We have a calling, a dissatisfaction, a dis-ease, some kind of grating inside that we've put something in ourselves or the world that just says, everything you knew in the past isn't helpful here. What is it that is real? That's when these questions are really have some spiritual juice. That's the first part of working with this koan, who am I? And that particular spiritual question comes up over and over and over and over again. Who is it that has difficulty? Now, one way of looking at that, less superficial way, or more superficial way, is that the world is just the way it is. Things just move around, and trees grow, and grass grows, and the rain comes, and the rain doesn't come, and the sun comes out, and we're all hot, and we all kind of move around. And that's just the way things are. And as soon as we add on top of it an opinion, a judgment, I think it should be cooler than it is today. I think everybody should be nice. I think that we should all love one another and get along well. I think I should know the purpose of my life. I think. And as soon as we start adding the I think on top of the way of nature of reality, we begin having friction. We begin rubbing against things. So it's another place. Whenever we find ourselves rubbing against the nature of reality and suffering, it's worthy investigation. To know that we don't know still requires investigation. Who is it that knows we don't know? So the first place is just to poke a hole in some really smart person who thinks, some pedant who thinks, yes, I'm cool, I understand this. Just a bunch of random thoughts they've been able to recycle over and over and over again. That's the first part of the poem. And it's couched in this interesting language. Well, in this particular little koan, Deshan, the student, came and this person asked him, well, who knows all this stuff? It's the nature of mind. And if we have to be honest, we have to say, I don't know. Because to say, I know the nature of mind, yes, I got it down, falls right back into the cycle of knowing and knowing and knowing. And yet, if we fall back, if we don't know, and we're all confused, if we don't know, and we have doubt, oh, it should be this, it should be that, I should know this, I don't know it, that's not very helpful either. So, when we ask these fundamental questions, when we look at the nature of mind and the nature of our own being, and we get down to, what can I know? Can anything be known? Can I even know that I don't know? We have to take a step beyond what the rational conceptual mind can do. It's interesting when I'm working in this call, what is real? So I think, well, is this real? Do I know that? What is it that knows that? My thoughts, are they real? What is it that knows that? I can't find the thoughts anywhere. They're just vaporous. Why do I think they're real? I do think they're real. What does that mean? So to hone one's mind, to look into the nature of reality, what all the koans are essentially about, whether it be a life koan or whether it be a story koans. So the next part of this particular koan is Deshan, the student, is talking late at night with his teacher. And they're sitting there talking, and the story basically just says they talked into the night. And I don't know whether the student was just asking questions, the teacher was saying, oh, yes, tell me more, yes, yes, tell me more, yes, yes. Or they were actually having a dialogue, as we would say. Shen Yang, who was Gyogu's teacher, Chinese master, he had an experience, one of his first openings was he had been a monk in China. He fled after the revolution, 1949. He went to Taiwan. He was stuck in the military. He was trying to practice as a monk. He didn't have anybody who really could talk Dharma with him, and there wasn't any resources. And so he was just, his mind was filled with questions about the nature of reality and what practice was, what these chants meant. And he was just seething. And one night he went and sat down next to an old monk, master. He just started asking question after question after question. The teacher kept saying, yes, tell me more, yes, tell me more, yes, yes, kind of give me all your questions. And his mind was just going on and on and on. And the teacher let him talk until he was emptied out. He had nothing else to say. And then the teacher said, put it down. Stop! And at that moment, it said that he had a deep opening. So here's this guy, thinking, talking. He asks, it's dark outside, he asks for a lantern. And this is ancient China, so probably a candle with a paper shield around it. So he's expecting certain things to happen. Dark, asks for a lantern, chooses a lantern, lights the whole thing. Now, we are filled with expectations. We are filled with expectations. I expect everybody should treat me. I expect that I should have good food. I expect that I should have fresh air. I expect that I should be able to sleep well tonight. I expect that I should have health insurance. I should expect that I should be able to talk. I expect that I should be able to think. We are filled with expectations. So we're going to talk about the Mumonkan Case 28, well-known Ryutan. And it probably should be, at least in my mind, called Ryutan Blows Out the Candle. It's a very famous koan. I'm going to read parts of it to you all because just so you'll be familiar with some of the literature of the Zen tradition. And we're going to extract and work on some parts that are directly relevant to what's sitting right here in the Zendo right now. So here's the first part, which is actually not technically part of the koan. It's the preliminary koan, preliminary to it. It's part of the commentary. Zen was flourishing in South China. And a monk, a scholar monk named Toksan, heard that they were spreading a teaching that insisted on a special transmission outside of scriptures, not relying on letters, where this mind is, as it is Buddha, perfect. And this monk was very indignant about this because he'd been a scholar monk, and he said, well, what is Buddhism if it doesn't rely upon the scriptures? What is Buddhism if it doesn't rely upon all this thousands of years of, of teaching? So he made up his mind to exterminate a heretical Buddhist. And carrying his notes and commentaries in the sutras and scriptures, he left home. He made a long trip down to the area where Zen was flourishing. One day, feeling hungry, he stopped in a small tea house by the roadside and asked for a snack. The old woman of the tea house saw an elated-looking young monk coming in with a big box on his shoulders and asked him, "Venerable monk, what books are you carrying in your big box?" The monk's kind of informal name, his nickname was Diamond Shoe because he was a specialist in the Diamond Sutra. The Diamond Sutra is one of the Prajnaparamita Sutras, the sutras on wisdom, and there's a whole series of them. The Heart Sutra that we chant is a little version of that. So he says, I have notes and commentaries in the Diamond Sutra. And the old woman then changed a little, and she said with a rather stern look, "Venerable monk, if you can answer my question, I will treat you to a snack. If you're unable to answer my question, you can't have it here." And of course, naturally, this very scholarly monk said, "Yeah, I can answer any question an old woman like this could ask me." And he says, "You may ask me any question." The old woman said, "In the Diamond Sutra, it's written that the past mind is unattainable, the present mind is unattainable, the future mind is unattainable. You have just said that you would like to refresh your mind. Which mind are you going to refresh?" So that's the first part of this particular koan. Which mind are we going to refresh? So let's look at this a little bit and see how it might relate to what we're doing right here. First off, this monk and all these koans are never about some ancient Chinese guy or woman. They're never about that. They're always about the vivid experience right here. So here's somebody who comes with his head full of opinions, understanding, all that stuff that he has learned, all the stuff that he's gotten educated about, all the ways he's learned to live and work in the world. And someone comes and says, I'm not interested in all the stuff that you know. I want to know something that's really fundamental. I want to ask a real question about the essence of things, and I'd like you to give me a real answer about the essence of things. Something before words. Well, this guy was stuck, as we often are. We know and we understand so much. We've been so well educated, even if we don't have a PhD, just our culture is so full of information. We are all stuffed to the brim with it. But who would we be without all that knowledge? Who would we be without all this information about our histories, about the world? Who would we be? That's what this question is asking about. And right now, look at your own mind and see
what conclusions you have made about your practice. Look, what conclusions have you made about your participation in the sesshin? What conclusions have you made? Or opinions or judgments? Right here, because almost everybody has made conclusions. Reflect on that. Evaluation you've made, some judgments you've made. It's not a hard question. We can easily come up with all sorts of things. So maybe we have a conclusion that I'm in pain, or a conclusion that I'm failing, or a conclusion not much is happening, or a conclusion I had a great insight yesterday and today is kind of dull, or a conclusion my mind is racing, or a conclusion I'm stuck, or a conclusion that I will just bear this, or a conclusion I'm not a good practitioner, or a conclusion I can't handle this, or a conclusion I'll never do this again. I'm hopeless. Or a conclusion that my mind was calm and clear this morning and that was good, and what do I need to do to get it back? A conclusion, I must work harder. A conclusion, I am too tired to work. These are all conclusions. These are all opinions. These are all things that we are adding on to reality. And these are exactly like the monk in this koan, Toksan. Toksan comes with his head full of opinions about the nature of reality. In his case, the Diamond Sutra is about emptiness, spaciousness. And so he comes full of opinions about that. And when we come to this point of sesshin, with our conclusions based upon our past experience, we start summing it up, predicting how it will be like in the future. So, they're all wrong. Every conclusion that you have made is incorrect. Flat out. And we grimly hang on to our opinion. They are all incorrect. So who would you be? What would it be like if you were sitting here in sesshin and all those opinions and judgments, which are wrong, just something the mind made up, weren't running things? If you were just sitting right here without any evaluation, I'm doing well, I'm not doing well, things are going the way I think they should go, what would sesshin be like? What would this breath be like? What would this moment be like? There is the nature of reality, which, as we keep hearing, whole and complete, lacking nothing, and then we add on top of it all of our judgments, and we cloud it up, and we cover it up, and we create all sorts of friction and all kinds of suffering. Who would we be if we didn't do that? So, one way of looking at that is we consider the body. Okay? So I always like to go to the hands because everybody feels their hands perfectly and easily. Now, if you're feeling your hands have absolutely no opinion. They're just hands. They're not busy talking to us and saying, please go wash me. They're not busy talking to us saying, oh, I'm too hot, I'm too moist, oh, hey, are you paying attention? I need to be scratched. They aren't talking to us and say, now raise me up, move them a little bit to the center and wiggle my forefinger so I can scratch. The hands have no opinion. They're just hands. Your heart has no opinion. It's just beating. It's just your heart. Your lungs have no opinion. Your digestive system has no opinion. Your back has no opinion. Your head has no opinion. They're just what they are. And frankly, the floor has no opinion. The weather has no opinion. It's just hot weather. And we're sitting here and we have a sensation in our knees or our back or our neck, or we have a sensation of weather, and somehow in us we add an opinion, we add an evaluation. Oh, it is too hot. I think it is too hot. My opinion about the weather is the right one. I think that knee should not feel that way. My opinion, that knee should feel differently. And why isn't it feeling differently? My opinion is my back should not feel like it feels. It should feel the way I think it should feel, and I want it to feel. And I'm going to work really hard to try to make my back feel the way I think it should feel right now. And we have this mind that jumps in there and says, okay, it's got to be the way I think it's got to be. What if you didn't take your opinions seriously? What if you had no opinion about the weather? What if you had no opinion about your knee? What if you had no opinion about, your breath or whatever you're feeling? What if you had no opinion about it? How would it be right here, right now, without an opinion? The weather would be the way the weather is. Your knee would be the way the knee is. The back would be the way the back is. Just sensation. The body does not suffer. The body does not suffer. The body does not suffer. The body just has sensations. And who decided that that sensation is not a good one, and this sensation is a good one, and I want that sensation, and I'm going to do everything I can to avoid this sensation so I can get that sensation, and I'm going to work really hard to make it? Where'd that come from? The body has no opinion. It's just a body. This day has no opinion. It's just a day. And this day is 100% filled with experience. 100%. So if we were trying to summarize this moment, and we look at all the people in here, and we look at all the lights in here, and we listen to all the sounds in here, and we look at all of our body sensations, it's not possible to summarize all of that information. What we tend to do when we say things like that is we say, okay, I'm going to ignore 99% of the information. I'm going to ignore 99% of the information, and I'm going to conclude that the 1% that happens to agree with me is the way it is. And then think about a whole week. All the information, all the details, all the breaths, all of the thoughts that have gone through. We can't make a conclusion about it. We can't write it off. We can't say, in my opinion, this last week was ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Every conclusion we have made is wrong. Every conclusion. Because it's just a little, tiny little pinprick of the nature of reality. It happens to be a bunch of thoughts that we happen to believe. So we're sitting right here in this room. If we had no conclusion, opinion, or judgment, or if we saw them as just temporary, we would have no problem. There would be no suffering. We would just be sitting here in this room in peace, with lights, with being well fed, having this wonderful, marvelous atmosphere. But if we are suffering, it's not the room's issue. It's not our body's issue. It's not the food's issue. It's not even our thoughts' issue, but our thoughts, when they just go around and around and we grab a hold of them, we start adding something. And we can become quite filled with suffering. We all have these thoughts and stories. And There's nothing wrong with thoughts and stories. There's nothing wrong with Tokusan's, all of the information he knew about the Diamond Sutra. It's just if we take them as real, and we keep telling these stories, especially negative stories, we just keep telling them to ourselves over and over and over. If we didn't tell the story to ourselves over and over, I'm a mediocre student. If we didn't tell that story to ourselves over and over again, that story would just go into the past and evaporate. If we didn't tell the story of, I'm not doing so well, it would just disappear. But we tell whatever story you have going, you just keep telling it over and over again. You've been probably doing it your whole life. So our task is not to say, okay, I'm now going to get rid of all stories, all opinions, all judgments. That would just be another story. That would be just something else that we're lading on. What we have to do is we have to look directly at this moment, see for ourselves that it has no story associated with it. When the stories come in, simply see them as not real, not true, impermanent, that they will disappear by themselves. They'll gradually fade away. We make them all up. Wouldn't that be an interesting way to look at all of our suffering? I made it all up. I made it all up. The world is just the way the world is. Things that are born get old and they die, and things that come together come apart, and day follows night, and there's ups and downs, and that's just the way the world is made. And all the suffering that I'm experiencing in here or in my life, I made it all up. I can stop making it all up. And I don't have to stop making it all up by adding another story on top of that, but by simply coming into the present moment, coming right here, coming into this experience, which has no conclusion. Has no opinion. So this is what happens in this particular part of the koan, is this he comes filled with his opinions and his judgments and his understanding, and someone says, okay, without all that, who are you? Same question we have. We're sitting here, and if we didn't have all this dense story about our life and what happened and how we're feeling and what we're doing and what's going to go happen and what's going to happen next, who would we be? It's a lot simpler than we think. So that's the first point of this koan. And of course, that is the point of Sesshin. So here's the second part of the preliminary to the actual formal koan. The second part is Tokusan arrived at Ryutan's monastery. And he cried out, I've long heard of well-known Ryutan. But having arrived here, I see neither a dragon nor a lake. So the Chinese character for Ryu means dragon, and Tan, Ryutan, means lake. So he was kind of making a play on pun about the teacher's name, saying, I don't see anybody here. Not seeing any dragons, don't see any lakes, don't see anything. Which is an idea about emptiness. I know all about the Diamond Sutra. I know all about emptiness. Emptiness means everything is kind of non-existent, is transient, is whatever it is. And so he's making this particular point, saying, I'm pretty cool. I understand this. I'm not going to be deceived. So continuing, this was no doubt the best possible remark that Daimon Shu, the monk Tokusan, could make, since he relied upon the prajna philosophy of shunyata, emptiness. Master Ryutan said, you have arrived at Ryutan in person. You've met me directly. You've met me directly. So we have all of these opinions like Ryutan, like Toksan did, about these Buddhist terms that we hear, about emptiness or spaciousness or the spacious mind or whatever. And we start playing with the spacious mind. It is not a thing. The spacious mind is not a thing which I either have or I don't have. I can get or I don't have it. It's not a thing. If we start thinking, I'm sitting in Sesshin and I haven't touched the spacious mind. I really don't understand the spacious mind. My mind is still just filled with thoughts, and I'm just filled with confusion. And I obviously am I'll write this one off. If we're sitting in Sesshin and we think, I need to have an experience of a spacious mind, I understand that's what Jogen's been talking about. That's what Hong Shi talks about. And then we have some idea in our head, say, okay, if I were to have an experience of the spacious mind, I've got an opinion what it would be like. Where do we come up with that idea? Where do we come up with my view of what a spacious mind is, or my view of what emptiness is, or my view of anything? Where do we come up with that? It's just a view. It's just a conclusion. One of the problems, of course, is anytime we talk about the inchoate, the unborn, in words, it makes it sound like things, of course. But we have these opinions about anything related to Dharma and Sesshin. I will have touched the spacious mind when you get to fill in the blank, when I experience whatever I think the spacious mind is. I will understand emptiness when I experience whatever the spacious mind, whatever emptiness is. I will understand these things when they match my ideas about how they are. We are not looking for the world to match my stupid, simple, incorrect ideas about how it should be, or how any of you should be, or how spaciousness should be, or how the mind should be, or my breath should be. These are all just ideas that we've generated, grabbed a hold of, and then we're using those as the standard to compare everything. They are all incorrect. Across the board. They are all incorrect. And not only are they incorrect, but they are obfuscatory. They blind us. They confuse us. We add all of our opinions on top of reality. They're just wrong. Not accurate, misguided, not in accord with reality. So we come here to Sesshin, we come to spiritual practice. At least that's my opinion, my conclusion, my hope. Is we come because we want to know the truth. Now, what that means, I don't know. Everybody in the room probably has their own version of that. But what we're looking at is, what is the truth? What is the reality? What is it before I have added all this stuff on? And we think sometimes that it's some magical, mystical thing that will have an experience of truth and suddenly will be the sixth ancestor of Buddhism in China, Zen in China. But that's just an idea. So if you want to know the real truth, feel your hands right now. And while you're feeling your hands, be aware of your nose. If you want to know the spacious mind, feel your hands and be aware of your nose simultaneously. And I know that you can feel your hands and hear my voice. I know you can feel your hands and feel the support that you're sitting on, the ground, floor, cushion, whatever, and hear this voice simultaneously. If you want to know the spacious mind, you hold two or more things in awareness simultaneously. It's that simple. You hold two or more things in awareness simultaneously. You hold both your hands in awareness. You hold both your hands in your nose. You hold both your hands in your breath. You hold both your hands in the sound. You hold both your hands in the room. And when you're holding those things in awareness, it's not a matter of the mind thinking anything. When you're holding them in awareness, that very awareness right there is the spacious mind. It's not a thing. It's not an understanding. It's a vibrant experience of inclusive awareness. It doesn't need any words. Nobody needs any words to know how your hands feel. Nobody needs any conclusions. You can hold both of your hands. You can hold both of your hands in your head if you want. If it's easier, you can do it like that. Whenever we're holding two or more things in awareness without having to make any evaluation about it, we are beginning, that is the spacious mind. It's present right here all the time. Not a special thing. Does not need words or conclusions. So again, we're back right here in Sesshin, sitting right here, wanting to know reality, wanting to know liberation from suffering, wanting to be free, wanting to understand the spacious mind, wanting to understand any Dharma principle. And we bring ourselves right back into our vivid, direct experience. Everybody here has got a body as far as I know, at least those of us we can see. To feel that body without an opinion about it, and hold that body in the floor in your awareness. Now, another little touch of reality. We are all completely supported every single moment of every single day for as long as we have been alive. Every single day, right now, we are being supported. We are being held up. We walk, we're held up. We're lying, we're held up. We're sitting, we're held up. Even when we're flying in an airplane, we have the experience of being held up. We don't have to do anything to justify it. It does not care whether we're having a good day or a bad day. It doesn't care whether we're old or young or a man or a woman. We are being held up. Feel the ground, feel the earth. Feel this experience right here. To actually experience, to actually rest in the truth of we are always supported at every single moment. All the time. With no conditions. We begin to rest in the nature of reality. It's actually a place of no fear. We're so afraid that things are going to disappear, that we're going to disappear, that we're going to fail, that we're going to be seen by people in a weird way. But we are always 100% supported. And if we put those two things together, 100% support, 100% support right here, right now, every single moment. And simultaneously we hold in our awareness the world, my hands. We not only feel the nature of spacious mind, but we also feel the nature of spacious mind that is 100% support. We can't fall out of the universe. So this koan is about exactly where we're sitting. Exactly where we're sitting. In the midst of freedom. Now we get to the actual koan, of which we're going to leave just a little part of it. The actual koan is, the first part of the actual koan is this. Tokusan, that's the monk, Diamond Shoe, once called on Ryutan to ask for instruction and stayed late at night. Ryutan's the teacher, said, "It's getting late. Time for you to leave." At last, Tokusan said goodbye, opened the door, and went out. However, it was probably the dark of the moon or something, and they go outside. Tokusan probably went out with him to say goodbye, or Ryutan. And it's dark. So he said, "Oh, it's dark outside. Do you have a candle? Do you have a light?" And the teacher, Ryutan, went and got a candle, probably put it in one of those, back in the ancient days of China, probably put it in a paper lantern. And he handed it to Tokusan, and Tokusan was about to take it. And Ryutan blew it out. The koan goes, at this, Tokusan was all of a sudden enlightened, or at least had some insight. He made a bow. Ryutan said, "What realization do you have? What have you seen?" Tokusan replied, "From now on, I will not doubt the sayings of the great masters in the world." So, let's just imagine this particular scene. These two guys are sitting there talking and talking and talking. And you can think, was it a discussion about, okay, here's how I see this. Well, no, here's how I see this. Well, maybe I see this way. Maybe I see this way. And they're just sort of going back and forth, as we all tend to do, sharing my view is this, and my view is that, and I think your view is wrong, and I think this view is better. But this is a great teacher, Ryutan, great teacher of China. So it may be that Tokusan was talking away, and Ryutan just undercut all of his opinions. Just said, negated him. Not true. Now, you can imagine how that would be for us. We are all so fixated on being right and being seen the way we want us to be seen, and we're so intelligent, and we want to be so together, we want to be so mature, and we have the story of our adequacies or our inadequacies, and we've got this whole identification with our particular collection of whatevers. What kind of conversation would we have with somebody who just ignored all that? What kind of conversation would we have with somebody who didn't buy any of our opinions? What kind of conversation would we have with somebody who didn't pander to our little small view of ourselves? We all love to talk about ourselves. We love to talk about our ideas of who we are. What happens if we were talking to someone who is just not interested in our well-cultivated story of who I am and how I came to be so wise, how I came to be so unique, how I came to be so special? Probably we'd be outraged. Probably we would just leave in a huff, or whatever a huff is. We leave angry. Because much of what we do with people is we just are sharing stories. And if somebody agrees with us, we think, oh, obviously there's a very great person there. They agree with my opinion. Or we get together with a partner and we try to put on our best face, and we try to look or the new partner, we try to get our best side showing, and they look at that best side and they think, oh, that's a pretty nice best side. I like that. And we look at the best side of them, and then before we know it, our two fantasies have gotten together. Our two best sides have now decided to have a relationship. And we've left out the other 3/4 of us. I mean, that's what a lot of relationship is, I'll show you my picture of who I think I am. You show me your picture, and we like those two pictures, then maybe we'll get together. That's why it's really well to really get to know somebody until you get beyond the picture, till you get beyond the cover of the book and really see what's inside, see who they are, see what kind of character somebody has. It's probably well not to make too strong a bond. Or another possibility is the teacher just listened. And Tokusan, the student, was just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. There are people like that. All you have to do is just say yes. Oh, interesting. Okay. And they just keep going and going and going and going and going and going. Maybe he's like that. And maybe finally he wound down, or maybe finally the teacher Ryutan said, that's enough. And so they step out in the dark. Ryutan asks for the lamp. Tokusan asks for the lamp. Ryutan hands in the lamp. And just imagine, we're sitting there, we reach out for the candle and alligator dancing. So even in that last sentence, we're expecting a common phrase. We're expecting a phrase like, he'd blow it out. We were predicting what would banana next. Our life is a life of just prediction, or predicting. Here's what's going to happen next. I mean, that's the way we listen to English. We all have learned so much English that we actually can predict the end of sentences, and things have to be in accordance with our prediction. We are prediction machines. So here is a situation where he is predicting the usual thing, okay? Candle, light candle, hand candle, pick up lantern, walk out into the dark. We're predicting all the time. We're predicting what's going to come next, what's going to come next, what's going to come next. And when our predictions are fulfilled, we feel safe and justified and right. My view is correct. I knew what's going to happen. Reality is okay because it agrees with me. We have deeply held beliefs from our childhood, deeply held beliefs in our psyche. And then we are predicting that those are true, and then we keep looking for things around in the world that reaffirm our prediction, how things are going to be and how I'm going to be. We're looking for reality to affirm our strong opinion. I have a story about myself, and I look for reality to affirm that story about myself. No pain, no gain. Well, we look for pain. I'm a failure. We look for signs of failure. I'm stuck. We have all the reasons that we start generating to justify the opinion and the conclusion I'm stuck. And we start listing the reasons. I don't understand. I have to have a purpose. Well, in this koan, Tokusan, the student, is reaching out with an expectation, and suddenly, it's cut. Suddenly, at that moment, that expectation is a crack in his strong view of how the world is put together. The world is put together because of our thinking, our world, every universe. We're all in different universes. The world is put together because of our kind of constantly predicting this is the way it is, and suddenly, crack. The expectation of the future wasn't there. Suddenly, there's a gap. And in that crack of our view, in that crack of how I think the world is going to be made, there is the possibility of seeing beyond our story, of knowing something more intimately. There's a crack in all of our knowing, and we can actually see something beyond that. These happen in different ways. Sometimes in our life, we're going along, and suddenly, crack, something unexpected completely happens. It just throws us, it stuns us. We stop, we go into shock. Well, if we're really practicing and we're looking directly at that and the mind stops, it's shock, there's a possibility of actually seeing something beyond our view. We are in a place where we truly don't know. We truly don't know. And there's a possibility of actually seeing, knowing, feeling, experiencing something a little bit deeper. People have the experience of There was one woman, part of the Sangha, who was on Mount Hood. Big blizzard came up. Her group went into a snow cave. They didn't know if they'd live tomorrow. They'd be frozen to death. And there's a crack in her view of reality. And when we have these kind of cracks in our fixed carapace of protection, and we actually can see the inherent freedom and liberation that is at the root of all things, that's awakening. It's a kinsho. It's an insight. So, we are prediction machines. We're always predicting what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next. And based upon our experience of the past and our evaluation of the present, we predict something for the future. We have a thought and we think, oh, in the past that meant this, or have a sensation in our body and in the past it meant this, and feel it now, and I conclude that right now it means I'm not sanguine, I'm not okay, it means I'm a worm, and therefore it means in the future, da, da, da. And that happens all the time in Sesshin. What happened yesterday is completely irrelevant. What happened this morning is completely irrelevant. What might happen tomorrow is completely irrelevant to your liberation. It's not about past and future, which are just thoughts. It is about the direct, vivid experience with no past and no future, right here. And in a way, one of the ways that we access that is by not knowing. Not in the not knowing of confusion, I should go this way and that way and this way and that way and get all confused, but by the not knowing of, I'm not focusing on what has happened, what might happen 10 minutes ago. Instead, I'm coming back to the direct, unmediated experience of this body sitting here being supported where it always is, with no history, no future. Not knowing, and yet at the same time, not knowing the future, at the same time, 100% experiencing what's right here. One of the inevitable challenges of the spiritual path is we're on the path, we have some insight, some opening, something, we recognize something, we see it, this is the truth. It can be happen when you're young, anytime in your life. And of course, all experiences that come go, everything is impermanent, and if an experience comes, it will disappear. It's the way it is. But then we remember that, we grab a hold of it, and we say, I want it back, I want it back, I want it back, I want it back, I'm going to get it back, I'm going to do what I can do so in the future I'll feel it again. And then we just start on the rat race, the spiritual rat race of chasing something we think is cool. We know nothing about the future. It does not exist. We have predictions, predict it, pretty soon I'll stop talking. But it's only a prediction. You have a heart attack. This may be the last thing that ever happens to you. We're predicting possibilities. Well, what if we actually said, I don't want to predict possibilities, I want to know 100%. I want to know 100%. Right here is the only place that we can experience 100%. The rest of it is all thought about some aspect. So who would we be if we're sitting here, 100% supported, not believing our story? We'd be free. We'd be free. We'd be liberated. Liberation is found only in this moment. Our full awakening is only going to happen in this moment. And it's always this moment. Our endless stream of possibilities and mights and oughts, the whole phantasmagoria of our, endless imagination, all happens in this moment. And all we have to do is allow that phantasmagoria to be doing whatever it does, and we bring our attention back, right here. And we hold, with an inclusive awareness, what is. And in that holding, we discover the spacious mind. And we watch life unfold mysteriously, morphing each moment, just morphing, 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 morphing. It's like a computer screen. The screen doesn't change, but it's always filled with images and dancing and videos and whatever else. But the screen is always there. The same is true with our life. Our life is always right here, and the screen is just, kind of frothing. So, you have freedom. It is your basic nature. You don't have to make it happen. All you have to do is use awareness to see that the stories and the opinions and the judgments are just dreams. And as soon as we are in the midst of a nightmare and we realize it's a dream, it begins to lose all of its charge. As soon as we realize that this plethora of fantasies is simply part of the dream, it begins to lose its charge. And you, all of us, right here, right now, are nothing but freedom. So, freedom is not about, I'll get something, I'll have something. It's kind of cool. But please know that if you're feeling dissatisfied, if you're feeling exhausted, anything other than liberated, other than free, it is not because of reality, but because we have now added on to our own cotton-headed stuff and obscured what is always available. So please, any conclusion you've made, any insight that you have from the past, let it all go and come back to the place of liberation.